Folks, welcome back to another episode of Craft on Tap, where we talk about growth marketing for RIAs. I'm your host, Stephen Beach, my co-host, Faustin Weber. And today we're going to talk about webinars as a marketing tactic, why we believe in them, why we think that webinars are indeed very much alive. They're not dead, and how we think they could help your overall marketing plan when done well. So we're going to share specifically a client example as we talk through this, and then share some best practices, things that we've learned. And the hope is that you can learn from this and implement in your practice, or at least have an idea of what you would like to implement going forward. So hopefully this is helpful. Yeah, Faustin, let's dive in.
Yeah, nice. So webinars are usually discussed as like a prospective client driving tool, right? We're not going to talk about it in that context today. We're going to talk about it more as a tool that firms can use to better engage their own client base. Um, Webinars as a prospect driving tool, and what I mean by that is like hosting a webinar on a topic and trying to get prospects that are part of your target audience to come in, participate, attend, watch the recording, do something else, to try to drive them into a discovery call. Those are definitely hit or miss based on what you're trying to do, how you promote it. We want to talk more about webinars as like a client tool. They're a fantastic mass communications tool for your firm. And if you're thinking about growth, right, whereas they are hit or miss more on like a prospect driving tool, they're something that can help you to become more radically relevant. Our buddy Bill Cates, the master of referrals for advisory practices, he's always talking about this, right? Like trying to become as radically relevant as possible. This leads to you becoming more radically referable, to becoming more referable overall. And so, you can do that through a number of ways with your practice, through really great email newsletters, through email campaigns, through great content that you're sharing that your current clients are seeing. We think webinars are a great way to do that. I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Stephen, just about our experience with Bill and how he talks about becoming more referable.
Bill's a good friend of the program. Hi, Bill. Yeah, he's one of the more, I guess, most one of the top three well-known coaches on driving more referrals to your practice. There's a couple other really great ones that we worked with as well. But I think for us, I guess the point that I wanted to make is just for us marketing overall. We talk a lot about. Um, our philosophy is 80% let's focus on marketing to your clients, and 20% let's focus on marketing to strangers, cold prospects. So this webinar tactic, I think, like, just view it with that as a kind of underlying theme that we're going to be talking about today. Like, we're really trying to focus on marketing to your clients, because we know that if we do well marketing and communicating to your clients, we know that we can drive more referrals, and we can usually gain deeper wallet share with your existing client base. So for the firms that are, maybe under 150 million in assets, or even under 200 million in assets, you might not have as many households to work with. What we're talking about today is more for the larger, kind of, I guess, mid-sized to larger firms that are maybe 300 million to 2 billion in assets, somewhere in that range. So if you're listening to this and you fit in that bucket, then this is going to be perfect for you. And the main point that I want to make with that is just, yeah, let's look at it through the lens of marketing to your clients with these webinars. So yeah, that's all.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, I think that's well said. I think obviously great client service, great results, the work that your advisors are doing, those are really a key driver of referrals as well. But this is like a tool. Webinars are a great tool to help you stay top of mind, help complement, supplement what your advisors are doing, and it's also a great way to potentially put your clients in a position where they can share webinars and different content with potential prospects, right? That they know their friends, colleagues. So it's a great tool. And so I guess let's just jump right in. We've been working with the Burney Company. a $3 billion assets under management firm since about 2021. And just a little bit about Burney Company. We're going to use them to kind of talk about some success we've had with webinars. They've been on the CNBC list, the top 100 list for the last 7 years, which is great. They're number 3 nationally last year, number 4 this year, number 1 RA in Virginia on that list, and they serve over 1,900 client accounts. Um, it's a big firm, right? Big RIA. They have a number of different divisions. They have a full like wealth management division that does like full financial planning. They just launched a new tax practice, so they're able to do tax prep as well for those financial planning clients. And then they have an investment management side um, for those clients that just want investment management. So more of the asset managers, and so a good mix of clients that make up that 3 billion number. Big team, like 18 different advisors or 18 different team members that either have a CFP or a CFA credential. So just they're great. Like I just wanted to share them just because we have had a lot of success engaging their clients and leading to more referrals as a result of what we're doing with webinars. So just to kind of like set the scene before we worked with them. So they had run webinars before using just Zoom webinars tool, but they were inconsistent, right? More of like a one-off type deal. They were getting into a routine of maybe doing it once every 3 months to share their quarterly investment update with their clients, but the lack of like real consistency and frequency was leading to some what we would call sporadic engagement from clients. So one of the things that we did when we first started with them was really dig into their personas of the clients by doing interviews. And we've talked about this a number of times on the podcast at this point. You really can learn a lot from your clients through those initial interviews. And we learned that a lot of them that we interviewed were getting a lot out of the webinars, and they gave us some really great feedback on topics that they would be interested in. And I want to stop here and say that, webinars are not going to work for every client base. For Burney, demographically, like more in the retiree ages, they got a lot out of webinars back in 2021, continue to do that. They may have a little bit more time to attend the webinars and participate in them. So we validated the fact that webinars would work with them first as part of these interviews, and have continued to validate that through consistent conversations over the last 3 to 4 years. But I just want to say that we definitely assessed whether or not webinars would be a good tool for them, and how we asked them, and also just like measuring their attendance and everything as we started out. I don't know if webinars work great for every client base, right, Stephen? Just depending on the majority of people in that client base, and like where they're at in their stage of life. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't know. Say you have we have another firm that one of their ideal personas is partners at a law firm. So those folks don't have a lot of time to sit back and grab a cup of coffee and watch a 45-minute, 60-minute webinar, even 30 minutes.
Yeah.
They're going to consume their information in a different way. They're going to communicate with their advisors in a different way. And so, yeah, I think it depends on the audience for sure. Always got to start there. But I think it's key what you said, like where we first started off to try to validate actually, we weren't even trying to. It just came to us naturally when we were interviewing the Bernie's clients to listen to what they found value in as far as working with Bernie, communicating with their advisor, communicating with the leadership team. And we had several people that said, "Oh yeah, they used to do webinars. I've been to a couple. I don't know what's going on with that." Yeah, I think it'd be helpful if they restarted them. So you get some firsthand feedback like that. It makes the decision to invest in webinars, invest the time and the money in a group like us. It makes that decision a little bit easier to say, okay, this is going to be a worthwhile marketing tactic we should include. So yeah, then we went full speed ahead and haven't really slowed down since.
Nice. Yeah, I think that's really well said. I would also just want to make a note here when we talk about Bernie. What's so interesting about sort of mastering the webinar process is that it's become this incredible tool in our back pocket that's helped us to navigate urgent events, right? Like urgent market events, the tariffs, when they were announced back in April, or what, maybe that was late March. Just the process already being in place and having it so well known, not just to the advisory team and not just to us as the agency that's helping them, and not just to the clients, but to like everyone involved. We were able to quickly get something up like even the day after and launch like a webinar offer to all clients with a slide deck ready to go about our thoughts around it. And we got something like 150 to 175 people that attended the day of afterwards. It's helped us navigate stuff like that, right? Announcements like the new tax practice that Bernie launched a couple of years ago. We're able to get a webinar in place where a lot of people were willing to participate in it, and we're excited about it. And that was a great way to share information to a mass group right away. So it's had this like implicit consequence of not just providing a lot of value on a frequent basis to clients, but also giving us this great tool to be able to quickly communicate about really important events. And as the one of the advisors that I work with pretty closely on the Bernie team says, we know that our clients are going to be seeing information out there. Like they're going to be reading information, even if they're not super highly engaged on the investment scene. They're going to see all those clickbaity headlines written by all the different news outlets that share stuff that's going on with the markets or share the end of the world coming with tariffs or all those pieces. We want to be the ones that can provide that education to them. We want to be the ones that they turn to. And so webinars have given us that chance to be able to respond quickly in those
Yeah,
circumstances.
almost like embrace the opportunity to control the narrative in a lot of cases, I would
Exactly.
say. So, yeah. The other thing is, yeah, that you mentioned like the emotional headlines and the people can, depending on your client base, right? You can start to field inbound, freak out calls, whatever you might refer to those as, but just from the clients that are coming in, saying like, okay, let me, I need to cash out, or I need to, do this or that based on headlines or based on something their friend said. So I think, and this isn't why Bernie did it, but another kind of secondary benefit that we didn't really foresee coming in is I think like the number of those kind of inbound requests or like the phone calls where it takes a decent amount of time. It's one-on-one for the advisor to then talk to the client and go through the situation and say what they would have said on a webinar. They're going to say the exact same kind of thing, but they've got to do it one-on-one now, across advisors, times however many people are writing in or calling in. So yeah, a good way to mass communicate, like you said, but still in a really personalized way. I mean, you
Yeah.
can mass communicate via email newsletter as well. That'd be a nice, easy one, but it's a little. I mean, it's definitely less personal. This is not. This is video. You're seeing tone and inflection and body language and this kind of thing. So it's a different mechanism that yeah is really helpful for situations like the tariffs.
Yeah, I think you made a really good point there. I've heard directly from advisors that it's been really nice for them when they get those panic calls to be able to say, oh, our leadership is hosting a webinar on this tomorrow or in 2 days. So here's, how I would respond to your direct questions. I'm going to bring this question up so they can answer it on the webinar, and I'd love for you to attend. I've heard that from a number of the Bernie team members that that's just been so helpful to have that in their back
Kind
pocket.
of
So,
nice part of the
um,
client experience that way, right? As a client, you're like, okay, great. A, I'm feeling heard. B, I'm going to get the kind of the deep information that I'm after. And C, I feel at ease, I guess, that the firm is on top of this, that the leadership team is on top of it, that they know what they're doing. All those kind of things can kind of put somebody at ease. So those things should not be overlooked either.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, so let's talk specifically. I pulled in some data, like a little case study
Big data guy.
information here.
Yeah, big data guy.
Yeah, huge data guy.
Love it.
Okay, so we're estimating like before we took over or started helping, I guess it's more accurate to say.
Enabled.
Bernie was doing
Yeah.
about enabled. There you go, facilitated.
Yeah.
They were doing about one webinar every 3-ish months or so, and they were getting about 60 registrants per webinar, so 60 client registrants per webinar. After we took over, right, within like 6 months or so, we were averaging about 150 registrations per webinar, doing a webinar-ish about every month or so. Sometimes we would have off months and just do it every other month. So it's a pretty significant increase, right, to some 60 to 150 registrants per webinar. And it's a little bit tricky to pull the attendance numbers and like see like how long each person's staying, but we saw those increase and we continue to see those pretty consistently. You know, I would say, kind of fluctuates based on the topic now in 2025, but pretty consistent about 150. The latest webinar we just did for a topic that was more of high interest had over 200 registrants from clients and about 150 people attend. So anyway, really good percentage there. I think that's a 250% increase on average. If we
Yeah.
want to throw, I
Numbers
know
guy.
you and I don't really like those. I know you and I don't really like those percentage increase ones that marketers use, but I feel like this one's legitimate, right?
That's
250%
legitimate.
increase.
What I don't like is if you increase a website's
Yeah,
traffic from 100 to 200 a month, which is still basically nothing, and you say, "Oh, we doubled the website traffic." Yes, but
yeah.
still, it's basically nothing. So you got to provide the context if you're going to put the number in there. So thank you for doing that. Even though we're not the numbers guys, we're the marketing guys, but still. So think about, I guess, if you're listening to this, think about, yeah, what would it be worth to you, or what kind of experience would it be like if you could have 10 to 15% of your client base attending a live webinar once a month or once every
Yeah.
other month. That kind of engagement, and we'll get into it, but they're active also, right? They're submitting questions ahead of time. Some people who
Oh,
can't
yeah.
attend, they submit questions ahead of time, and then those questions can get answered, and then we follow up with the recorded video, or the advisor follows up with the recorded video to say, hey, we answered this question. Here you go. It's just a cool piece of the client experience, I think, as a way to engage, the larger the base, as a way to engage a good base of your clients.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. The 10 to 15% is probably higher than that. I need to go back through and crunch some data over the last like year or two, but those are 150 registrants on average. Doesn't mean they're all the same people. You definitely have like a higher engagement from a smaller portion of the base, but I would go and say that like someone has registered or attended for a webinar, like probably closer to 40, 50% of the client base over the last 6 to 12 months
Okay,
have at least been
excellent.
touched in some way with like an attendance or registration,
Yeah,
which even makes it more powerful, right? That you can, I mean, that's one of the nice things about having a consistent cadence too, which I'm going to talk about here. So how do we do it, right? Okay, so let's add that element to the case study piece. So we broke this down into 11 tips or 11 strategies, or maybe strategy is not the right word, 11 tactics that you can do when you start with your webinar. So the first one, commit to a regular cadence. Okay, this seems like maybe a simple one, but don't worry about webinar fatigue. I have talked with advisors before, hey, we're doing too many webinars. I really feel like with Burney, like giving the clients a consistent offering, right, allowed for more opportunities for people to sign up. We had more topics spread across a wider variety of different, financial planning topics, investment management topics. And so it allowed for people to participate. So we just committed to it on a monthly basis. And that ended up helping drive overall registrations overall. It's kind of counterintuitive, right? Because you think maybe you do it less, you get more people to attend, but that's not what we saw. We do it more, got more people to attend, got more people to engage. Um, Number two, keep the same time, and if you can, the same day of the week. So this is kind of similar to the structure of a regular cadence, right? But some recommend changing things up to be able to offer it to more people, or like some people might not be able to do Wednesdays during lunch, but they might be able to do Thursdays in the evening. We found a lot of success just picking the same day of the week at exactly the same time. Um, which was like Wednesdays at 12:30. So right on the 12:30 Eastern. So right in that lunch time frame. There was never a question about when the webinar was. It's always going to be on Wednesday. This is probably like case by case with different firms, but that's just something that worked for us. And I do think there's a lot of, there's this psychological aspect to this too, from a client perspective. you're thinking about the webinar, there's never a sort of question of like, okay, am I going to be able to make this or not? Like you just know that it's going to be Wednesdays at 12:30, and then the investment webinar that we do for Burney is on the third Wednesday of every month when the new quarter starts. And so again, they're just like regular cadence. Everyone knows it. The internal team at Burney, all the employees, us as a marketing agency, all the clients, and so that really has helped solidify things from the client perspective. Anything that you wanted to add there, Stephen?
That reminds me, so I live in St. Pete, Florida. So we have this like outdoor festival. It's called First Fridays. So first Friday of every month, they shut down a couple of the streets downtown, and there's bands that play, and everyone's walking around with drinks and cigars outside. There's, it's a big cigar shop nearby, and it's just kind of a cool experience. So that's what this reminds me of. It's like First Fridays. Just pick a day, yeah, pick a day and a time, and try it for a few in a row and get into a regular cadence. It also saves time on scheduling, and we don't have to go back and forth with everybody's schedule. It's just blocked off ahead of time, so it's just easy internally also.
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, you could give away cigars as well. If you can get like compliance approved participation trophies
Some
for
branded cigars,
attending,
yeah,
that would
that'd
probably
actually be nice.
probably go
Yeah,
would probably go a long way. I don't
again,
have on the list
depends
here
on the audience
offering
though
any
too.
sort of gifts.
Yeah.
We have offered gifts for attendance. We've done like a live, drawing to get people to attend. Little iffy on some compliance departments or compliance people really hate that idea because you're not supposed to give anything, unless it's like very well spelled out. But we have had firms that have just said, "Hey, we're just gonna do a live drawing." So, maybe cigars are a good way to go.
Yeah, it depends on the audience, right?
Um,
I wouldn't do it for, a health conscious type of group, probably. If
yeah,
you're
it's
if you're
probably not good.
marketing to I don't know, female physicians, probably not a big cigar crowd, but
Yeah,
it depends. The
definitely not good.
retiree crowd might have some luck there.
100% retiree crowds ready to go with cigars.
Yeah.
Okay, so number three, involve more than one presenter. So, this is not 100%, it has to be like this every time, but 2 to 3 people make things much more interesting, more of a dialogue back and forth. You or I could do this podcast if anyone's listening. It could just
Oh,
be one of us, but
God
I,
forbid. I was
I think
just
it's
thinking about
much,
that. Yeah,
yeah,
that'd be horrible, wouldn't
it's
it?
much it makes for a much more pleasant listening experience to hear like sort of a back and forth discussion, right? And this is, I mean, this is not a novel concept. Many podcasts follow this. So anyway, the webinars, same thing. Like you can have someone get up there by themselves one time, but if you bring in, multiple people, it can really help make it a much more engaging experience. And then right along that line, number four, mix up your team members. So we have firms that really want to promote other advisors, younger advisors that they're trying to move up the ranks. Maybe they promoted an advisor to partner and they want to position them in terms of credibility and expertise and everything. Webinars where you have multiple people bringing in new faces, not always having just the 2 or 3 leaders at the top of the firm is a good way to increase engagement too, especially if you're handing off clients to one of those new advisors when they come in. Adding a webinar to just increase overall firm credibility, like having them participate, that goes a long way. Number five, and I think you hit on this a little bit, Stephen, change up your format to encourage participation. So interactive Q&As are like a great way to make your webinars more interesting, exciting, and to get people to come back. The way we do this with Burney is we have a little question mark on a field on the form to register for the webinars where they can ask their question. And they're pretty active on these questions, right? Like they'll ask, I can remember something with the tariffs, there were a lot of,
Mhm.
questions. And so we queue these all up for the Burney team ahead of the presentation that they're going to do in the webinar. But then what Burney team does a really good job with is they can actually add, they have a part of their PowerPoint presentation. They have this add-on called Slido, where they can do a QR code at the beginning of the webinar and allow all their clients to, scan their phone or go to a website online using what's on the screen and submit questions all throughout the webinar. So we have like the consolidation of who asked questions ahead of time and then those that are asking live. And they'll spend 30 minutes, 45 minutes, even an hour if the questions are important enough at the end of whatever they were deciding to present, answering all those questions, right? And people will stay on and listen. And so this is like a huge piece of making these webinars great for clients, right, Stephen? Like, I mean, just the ability to ask the leadership a direct question, that's something that you've been wondering. It goes a long way for the advisors being able to answer it.
Yeah, I love it. How many questions do they get on average, would you say? I mean, I've seen lists of the questions ahead of time. There would be like 30 or 40
Yeah.
questions from different people, but
Yeah, like third, like anywhere from 20 to 40.
yeah.
And a lot of times the questions are going to be answered in the actual presentation, right? That they've worked on. So, and in a lot of cases, it can validate what they've already anticipated to be the questions, but a lot of times they'll be different, right? And the Bernie teams, because they've done it so often and they're just, you know, they can answer, they feel comfortable answering things live and just like kind of riffing off the cuff on whatever they get asked. And so that's another component is that, if this makes you, potentially nervous about what will be asked versus not, you just get better with it with time, I would say. Okay, number 6. So topics. So one thing that we found a lot of success with Bernie is try to do top of mind topics. I mean, that might be sort of a truism to say that, but if there is like an urgent market event, like that's a topic that everyone's going to be thinking about. But more than that, a nice mix of financial planning topics and investment topics, depending on your client audience can go a long way. Kind of we for a couple of years there we were sort of rotating back and forth between something investment related and then something more financial planning related. Where we had the most success was when we were able to align the webinar topics with the client service calendar, especially when we were talking about on the financial planning side. So, Medicare in the fall, right? Like open enrollment strategies, like late September, early October, when the Medicare enrollment period comes up. Um, Mid-year tax planning, when that was a discussion point between clients, we would have a mid-year tax planning webinar. Something around taxes in the March, April timeframe, just because, people are wondering, having a lot of questions. So we would do some sort of, tax related webinar then. So that was something that we started doing, I think, back in 2023, and that really helped sort of, again, supplement what the advisors were talking about, right? Because there's an overall structure and cadence to what's being discussed in the client meetings. Being able to turn back to the webinar as something that, answer additional questions the client might have, or to be able to just help answer the questions was something that really worked out well. Okay, so topics. And then another way to think about topics, I think this might be another point, like a barrier point, is just what are your clients asking you, right? I mean, that's like a big point. Like if you start to see themes, right? And if you have your team meeting with your advisors and they're seeing themes about what they're being asked, it's a great webinar topic.
Yeah.
It's pretty, it's a safe bet to extrapolate from what a few people are asking across multiple advisors to the fact that a lot of your client base might be thinking and worrying about whatever it might be. So just lean into that, right? I
And your
think that's a good way to
prospects
think
actually
about it.
too, right? We talk about Marcus
Yeah.
Sheridan a lot on this podcast, but he literally wrote a book called "They Ask, You Answer." There's a whole book about it. It's the whole thing is just if a prospect or a client asks the question, um, that's a perfect topic for you to answer. So just if it comes up repeatedly, even better. I mean, that if you think about it, that's kind of what we've done on this podcast is just we've talked about the top 15 things that our prospects or our clients are asking or that we know that they're thinking about, and then we talk about them. It's pretty simple, right? It's just like don't overthink it. Just rally around the things that you're hearing, that your advisors are hearing, that you're listening to your clients' concerns or things that are newsworthy, and then and start there. You don't have to reinvent the wheel with when it comes to generating the topics.
I love that. Okay, number 7. Okay, so the promotion piece. So we say promote at least 3 times through multiple channels. If you can use automation, that was the way that I framed it. So this is a big point. Like, don't be shy about promoting it. Different advisors that we've worked with have different, opinions about this. They worry, rightly so, right, about blasting their clients with too much information. But I just want to remind everyone, and this is not foreign news to anyone listening to this, but your clients are getting a lot of emails just like you are every single day, and the promotional emails that you will send out to advertise um, the marketing webinar that you're doing or the client engagement webinar that you're doing, you're not always going to see email number one or email number two. So it is important. Think about it from more of like you're helping your clients to be able to see it perspective versus, hey, I'm annoying them. So it's okay to promote your valuable event. You know that it's valuable. It's going to be good for them. So we say like our normal thing is, hey, put a save the date. If you have a newsletter that you send out, save the date a full month in advance. If you can plan that far ahead, then do a one-off first promotion, about 1.5 to 2 weeks out from the event. Then a second email, 5 to 7 days out from the event, and then even a last chance email 2 days before the event. And then we have, Bernie, we're still using Zoom webinars. It's worked out well for us. And we have the automatic 24-hour notification that goes out to registrants the day before. So if you think about it, that someone who has not registered gets a good 3 emails to consider whether or not they're going to attend. And I should mention that we do pull out using some automation in the platform that we're using to promote it, which is HubSpot. We do filter out registrants from the additional promotional emails. So if you've already registered, you don't continue to get emails to register, right? But if you haven't registered, you continue to get the promotions.
I think
And then we also go ahead.
one other thing, those emails make it easy to forward on to somebody else too, right? You forward on to a friend,
100%. Yeah.
your partner, colleague, whatever it may be. It's just one more opportunity to say in the email, even, if you can think of somebody who might find this helpful or valuable in some way, feel free to send the invite along to them. So it's a very like non-salesy, low pressure type of way to generate some more eyeballs and some more you know seats and butts and seats when they come to the webinar.
Yeah, and that goes right along with number 8, Stephen. Make sure you spend some time on your landing page for the registration, right? So not just the email promotion, but like when they click in to actually register. So we use like a nice custom landing page through HubSpot that automatically connects with Zoom. And we have, really nice graphics for whatever the webinar event is going to be. We have nice headshots of the presenters with a little bit about their credentials, with like 3 or 4 bullet points about what they're going to get out of the webinar. I think that's an important piece. Like the topic, the title, that's important to engage your clients. But also they need to understand what they're going to get out of the webinar, right? Because yeah, it's not even with a team like Bernie that has provided value for years and years in these webinars, they still need to make the case to clients why it's worth their time. And I was just thinking about the landing page itself in relation to what you said about it being shared with potential prospects. Always think about that, right? Like if someone's discovering your landing page for the first time that you're promoting this webinar, they don't know you. It's important to have those credentials for the presenters. It's important to understand what they're going to get out of it so you can get them to register. Okay, number 9. This is something that's become really, really important. And we always provide a recording timely sent out with key takeaways afterwards. So what this looks like is a nicely formatted blog article with the full webinar, but then timestamps with like key topics that are discussed at different timestamps, as well as bullet points and or a paragraph summary of each of those key timestamps and exactly what's discussed. A lot of times, right, when people register, they're not available for the actual webinar itself to attend, but you can still get a lot of value and meaning and substance to engage with the recording afterwards. And so we try to make that as highly accessible as possible to the clients so they don't necessarily have to watch the 30 to 45-minute discussion, but they can get a lot of content out of it just by scanning through, seeing the key headers. They can jump to a particular timestamp. So that's become a really important component It's made it a little bit easier with AI, so we can pull out a lot of like synthesis from the transcript from the marketing agency perspective. But it's something that I think is a non-negotiable if you want to get the most out of these webinars. Would you add anything there, Stephen?
Just that it's these webinars. We talked before about why advisors should start a podcast in 2025. It's I think of it in a similar way. It's a mechanism to consistently generate good content, and then
Yeah.
ideally you have a team or you have a person on staff who can take it and run with it, right? Because one webinar that's 30, 45 minutes, that can become a lot of things content wise. That can become multiple social posts, multiple video clips. It can go on. It can obviously own its own page of the website, like you just described, with all the kind of key takeaways for somebody who didn't get to watch it live. It becomes a consistent mechanism for content generation, which can be sort of a mental hurdle or a heavy lift for people at times. So think of it that way.
Yeah, another way that we've seen to measure, the success, not just the number of registrants and attendees, but you can say, hey, how many views did the blog have afterwards? How many views did the recording have afterwards? How many views did the clips that we posted on social media from the webinar have afterwards? So you can really like there's like a multiplying effect of these that goes beyond the actual what's happening in the session, just
Right.
like with podcasts, like we discussed to your point.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so that was number nine. Number 10, ask for feedback. So, surveys can help. So we've sent out some surveys for Bernie. We don't do it on a regular cadence. Something to think about. We could probably implement on a more consistent cadence. But we have gotten some really good feedback from individual advisors who talk to the clients about it, and they get a lot of good anecdotal feedback. I'd love, I think you should try to send out some surveys. We have gotten some good information. Not the best participation necessarily, I would say, in terms of like everyone filling out the survey that registers or attends, but the anecdotes that we do get from like we'll usually have like a 1 to 5 scale, and they'll be able to rate, the usefulness of the topic and the way it was presented. But then we always have like an open box for them to be able to share their thoughts. And a lot of times we can glean a lot of good information from the respondents
Mhm.
the responses there. And then number 11, a small team of advisors or a marketing champion, like one person for content planning. So this is really big. The bigger the team that's involved in how these webinars are planned, the harder it is to actually execute them. And I think we found that across clients. And so one of the key reasons, one of the key tips we're sharing with you now, and also one of the reasons that we feel like Bernie's have been so successful is we have a pretty small team. And a lot of times we just lean on the one champion who's fantastic on doing all the planning for it. And this gentleman is responsible for, on the Bernie side,
He
getting
is
the
a gentleman
alignment
too,
from
isn't he?
advisor.
Yeah.
He is a gentleman.
He's a gentleman and a
Getting the
scholar.
alignment, getting the alignment from the Bernie team on like confirming those topics and bringing in the right people. And so that's been huge. If you get, 6, 7 people on a call trying to plan out what the topics are going to be, it just becomes very difficult to be able to actually decide and execute on anything. So, assign a champion for marketing that can be the coordination with your internal person or with the agency or whoever else you're working with for marketing, and trust that person, empower that person, because you're going to be able to move things along much more quickly, and the outcome is going to be much more successful, I
Yep.
would say. And now, Stephen, I'm looking through our notes here. You added you know some ideas to experiment with, right?
Yeah. So I'm just
And
thinking
you said like, go ahead.
for Bernie, we're talking about one a single webinar for their entire client base, or I shouldn't say
Yeah.
entire client base, but for the wealth management side of things, and then the investment management side of things. Um, this is like one webinar that kind of covers, a lot of topics and a lot of people. Um, if you have a niche, and we've talked about niche marketing before, webinars are a really great way to generate, a lot of good client engagement with that specific niche. So if you focus on a really good example of this would be like you focus on equity comp benefits of a specific company, even. We
Yeah.
talked with an advisor like focus on Delta pilots, like the Delta pilots guy. Doing a webinar on, comp package for Delta pilots would be the probably the most niche you can possibly be with webinars, but any kind of niche based segmenting you can do would be really, really helpful for this. And then just think about, right, you're driving, you don't need you don't need everybody to come to attend to make it seen as successful. You just need those people who it is the webinar messaging is radically relevant to those people. That's what you're after. So we've seen that work really well as an example of targeted webinars that are more like niche focused. Sometimes they're even company based. Just be thinking about that if you do have a niche and you can kind of narrow down the target list and you can kind of narrow down the topic, it's even more powerful. The engagement will be even higher than what we're talking about here with Bernie. Okay.
Yeah, I think you make a really good point. Those are also the best ad campaigns too, if you're trying to drive like more prospect registrations, because platforms like LinkedIn, you can target specific company employees and really like nail down exactly who you want to go after. So,
Hmm.
so yeah, I love that. I love that. Yeah. Two other like quick ideas you can experiment with: calling it a live event versus a webinar. And I guess what I'm saying here is more just experimenting with words outside webinar. I think webinar has worked really well with Bernie. It's a term that has been coined, uh, that they know what it means, and so we keep using it. Um, and the demographics of their client base is probably more akin to appreciate and still value webinars. I would say like audiences in their earlier stage, middle stage careers might not always webinars. They might have a little bit of fatigue with the name itself, and so we have had some success calling it a live event. Or you know, I listen sometimes to different sports podcasts, and Colin Cowherd's always talking about how we're in a live event society, right? So any sporting event that doesn't feel like an event, right? The people in America don't care about, they don't attend. It's the ones that really drive urgency that get the eyeballs on tuning into the streaming channels, or like some of the traditional Fox or CBS channels. And the NFL, he always says, does a really good job of making everything like it seems urgent, like a live event. So you can apply. I agree with that as it relates to webinars. If you can make it seem like it's an exclusive type of event, you can test out different words that don't make it just seem like a quote unquote boring webinar. But again, it just depends on the target audience and what resonates with them. And then the second thing I would say is kind of along those lines. Consider every now and then not sending the recording. So if you really want to get live attendance, you can consider like saying, hey, this is the only time you're going to be able to experience this information, and we're not going to send the recording, or we're not going to record. You have to be there live to attend. And we have tried that a couple of times. It makes me a little queasy as a marketer, since I love the recording aspect so much for what you can do afterwards. But if you really want to make it clear to clients or to prospects that they have to go, just tell them it's not going to attend. They're not going to be able to get the recording, and that does increase the urgency a little bit and get more attendees. Anything that you wanted to add, or anything we missed, Stephen?
Oh man, if you want to keep going down that path, and I don't like this at all, but I have seen people do this, to market using exclusivity. Right? You would say same kind of idea, like don't send the recording. It's like you're only going to see this if you attend it live. Or I've seen people do this. It's kind of like a white lie, actually. Only the first 100 people to register are going to be able to register, right? And then when you sign in and you register, they hide the number of participants because it's probably 450 people because they just completely made up that exclusivity piece just to try to
Yeah,
they're trying to drive urgency. So I'm not an advocate of that. I'm not a fan of that for this industry, especially if we're talking about your clients. Um,
yeah,
but just if you're going after, this could be a separate conversation, but say you're doing webinars to attract cold prospects or some a different type of audience, you could start to experiment with some of those tactics. I think they're a little bit cheesy, especially for, the type of like high end, very personalized service that our financial advisor clients are offering. But anyhow, that's what it made me think of is like it starts to go down that kind of direct marketing path that gets a little bit, it makes me a little bit queasy just thinking about it. But I have seen people do it. Okay.
Nice.
What
Okay.
else did we
Anything else you
miss?
think we should add about webinars?
No, I just want to say thank you to the Bernie Wealth team. I mean, Lowell Pratt took a chance on us back in 2021. They were one of our first RIA clients, and we've learned a ton working with them. They're great people. Like I know everybody says that, but we've spent time with them in person over the years, and yeah, I don't know. They're just like down to earth people that happen to be really smart and have been doing this for a really long time. So they've built this business to where they are now. So yeah, the partners there, right? Adam and Kyle, Joel, Yev, who am I missing? Bijal, they've given it Kyle. Gosh, I almost forgot Kyle. He was the gentleman and scholar that we mentioned earlier, wasn't it? They've just been great to work with. So I want to say thank you to you guys to the Bernie team for giving us the opportunity to talk about Bernie like this freely, so that other people can kind of learn from what we've done and what we've implemented together. Um, and then if anybody who's listening to this wants to go check it out, just see examples of what we've talked about, berniewealth.com. You can see the on-demand recordings in the resources section. You can see what we're talking about with the video clips, and then with the summary, so that if you didn't attend it live, or if you just want to refresh, you can go to that page and kind of get the summary of what the topic was. So go there and check those out. Besides that, we appreciate if you would like, subscribe, give us a 5-star review. We're not after the biggest audience in the world. We're after, giving good content and good client examples to RIA founders and managing partners. So if that's you, we'd love it if you would like the show and subscribe. So thanks very much for listening, and we'll be back with more soon.